Good morning. Happy Saturday morning. So, I don't know about you guys, but I have been like what my mind does a week in, not even a week into this quarantine. My mind is like, oh, we're good. It's all over. And so just watching that mental restlessness, like physically, I've had really good downtime, resting, nourishing, doing stuff around the house. But I feel that pull, like I'm sure everyone does, to have something different happening. And so to work with that in my cells this morning, I would like to really stay in poses. So we're going to hold poses, let the pose teach us about patience and endurance and about staying no matter what, showing up in this moment as it is no matter what. And so that's what I want to bring forth this morning. I also would like to go towards back bending. So for this morning's practice, some blocks, a blanket, belt, and a bolster if you have one. If you don't have a bolster, you can make a bunch of blankets. And of course, I have no idea what's going on out there. So you always in my classes, whether I can see you or not, are always welcome to do whatever you want. So let's get started. Take your blanket and unfold it into fourths. And then lay it at the head of your mat with the fringe towards the head, but let's take that fringe part and roll it up a few. So we're going to make a little cradle for our neck. However big you want it to be to support a natural neck curve. So my head's still on the ground. And I'm going to stretch my legs long here. You are welcome to bend your knees. And I invite you to have hands on belly. And first step is maybe you can tuck the shoulder blades back and down. And then replace your hands. I've got hands on low belly. And first step is just to land here. Let all the prana particles settle down. And no doubt everyone can see some silver lining. In this moment, just the opportunity to pause and be still and to follow the breath. So feel for movement in the low belly. I'm not saying push your breath out, push your belly out. I'm not a fan of pushing out the belly when breathing, but the belly will receive the breath. So invite the breath to go low and deep. You might feel first the ribs expand, and then the upper abdomen around the solar plexus, and then maybe eventually all the way down around the pelvic belly. And so full, soft, deep breathing to start. With the blanket roll at your neck, when you get to the very top of the inhale, you might feel the head respond to the expansiveness of the full inhale. And the head might want to, like the back of the neck might want to shorten at that point. But the blanket roll for me minimizes how much the neck can move. And so it creates a little bit of traction. So I'm feeling for both the reach of the belly down and the subtle neck adjustments that I get at the very top. So play with those two poles, upper pole of cranium, ether element, and the lower pole of pelvis and earth element. And so right here on your mat, a little bit of heaven and earth. And let's just stay here for a little bit longer. Go to empty too, so find the very bottom of each exhale. So merging not only heaven and earth, but merging fullness and emptiness. Doing this Hatha Yoga dance of harmonizing the dvandavas, the twos, the two polar opposites of our experiencing. And meeting yourself right in the middle. If you can find yourself there. If you're caught at either extreme, then meet yourself there. Last few moments with this, I invite you now to change the shape of the belly. Well, actually to resist the shape changing in the belly. So we've been letting the belly receive the breath. It changes shape, it gets bigger. With your next exhale, gather the exhale muscles. So you feel them turn on. I hope you feel them turn on. Gather them up. Keep them a little softly engaged. And then try to move the breath in deep, but belly muscles restricting movement there is going to force, it's a strong word, but it's going to encourage, it's going to demand that the breath gets bigger in the ribs, bigger in the thoracic area. And so see what that offers you. So using our bandhas, Mula Bandha, Uddiyana Bandha. And if it feels good, you can suspend at the top, feel the heartbeat. And when you're ready to release, super slow, long, exaggerated exhale. And maybe you pause at the bottom too. So adding pauses top and bottom with our bandhas. Perhaps one or two more rounds, and I invite you to look closely at the place where the ribs meet the spine. So many little synovial joints where the ribs meet the spine, so many. And see if you can feel into, touch each one from rib 1 to 12, right and left. And when you're ready, releasing any discipline around the breath, releasing any manipulation of the breath. Just melt for a moment. Pause. Bend your knees if they're not. Feet on floor, and maybe use one of your hands to pick your head up and the other hand to unroll the blanket. Replace your head back down. I vote hands interlaced behind head with elbows pinned to the floor. Take the feet wide as your sticky mat, and let the knees fall to the left. So not much twist in the spine here, as much as there's an internal rotation of the right leg and obviously external rotation of left. So add a little squeeze of the inner right thigh so the right knee can move closer to the floor. And you might play on the inner edge of that right foot. So for my right knee, I actually need to supinate that right foot. So I'm reaching outer right foot to the floor like the back foot in a warrior pose. And then tail with exhale maybe swings towards that right knee or reaches towards the right knee, and inviting that lengthening feeling along the outer hip, front hip, outer front hip, right side. Keep that going, and swing just the left knee up. And for me, my right knee can get a little closer to the floor. I can come a little more in the inner edge of the right foot. And as the left knee sort of crowds the right knee, then right knee is like, all right, pardon me. It swings up, both knees go to the right. That was my dog repositioning himself. So left foot, for me, my left knee is a little different. So I don't have to organize the foot in a special way to support my knee. So I can play around. Inner edge of foot will help with internal rotation. So it's a pronated foot. That'll help turn that left leg internally more. Depends on the knee strength and shape, if that feels helpful or not. So please know there's always choices. Tail reaching towards left knee, left shoulder blade and left elbow back into the floor with some sense of commitment. And I actually like to add, maybe you can feel if you dive your left shoulder blade down, and the softest nudging with your left hand, both your hands really, can traction oh so gently the skull away from the tail. Add it or don't, your choice. And we'll invite the right knee, keep left knee down, invite right knee to slowly swing up and feel the deep belly sort of narrow, low belly, pelvic belly deepen. And let that be a foreshadowing of what can be helpful, that deepening, hollowing of the low belly, and bring the left knee up. First side again, but then from here, you got the right knee diving down just like before. Swing the right elbow towards the ceiling and then over towards the left. So now you're laying on your left side with your right foot behind you. I'm hugging right elbow towards left elbow, feeling that same narrowing, deepening of the pelvic belly. I'm floating the right foot off the floor a few inches, maybe more, maybe less. Point the toes and reach that leg back like a lunge, like warrior one. And free the right arm and reach it forward and up, not towards the ceiling, but overhead. So now the right side has got a long diagonal, sort of like side lying lunge. And you can free the left elbow, free the left hand, both hands sort of meet on the diagonal opposite the right leg, and head floats. You can look towards the direction that your head and hands are pointing. So now it's for real, like a side lying lunge. Reach and reach and reach. Maybe right arm reaches past left. And it becomes a little bit of a twist. You could let the head drop, drape over left shoulder. keep right leg internally or neutrally rotated. Keep the right hip stacked. Let's rebend the knee, rebend that right knee. Look for the floor behind you, the edge of that mat where the foot came from. And then as you drop the right hip back, let the right arm slide across the chest, both hands behind head, swing both knees up. Pause. Yum. Yum, if you ask me. Elbows wide, hands behind head. Tip both knees to the right. Magnetize left knee towards floor. Swinging left elbow towards ceiling. Turning the whole torso to lay on the right side. Elbows like blinders on a horse. Hugging the sides of the head. Use this moment to assure that you're on your right side and you can float left toes, left leg a little bit off the floor, not much, and stretch it long. Reach it back and long, however long you can. Keep turning left elbow and eventually free your left arm to reach diagonally opposite your left leg. And I like to toggle, like left leg wins, then left arm wins. So I'm doing a little wobble, a little rocking on the outer right hip. Tiny, tiny. And eventually the right arm wants to join the left, and you can look with your face towards the wall overhead, not the ceiling above you, but the wall that's opposite your left foot. Sideline lunge. And maybe left hand stretches further than the right. Head can drape over the shoulder. Breathe and lengthen and enjoy, or at least endure. It's not enjoyable. Nothing dangerous, nothing painful. Rebend the left knee. Look for the edge of the mat from which the foot came from. And then as you drop that left hip to the floor, let the left arm sweep. And both hands interlaced behind the head, and any wobbling or stillness here that feels good to you. I'm just swinging my knees right to left, a little loose and quick. And then I want to just point out this rolling across the pelvis, we go to the outer hip, it offsets the hips, right? So if you bring your two knees and feet right together, like one leg, and then you tip onto the outer right foot, both knees swing over to the right, reach left knee opposite left elbow. So if you have SI drama, be careful with this one. You got to really narrow and deepen that low belly. And the 2 feet are like a pedestal, like the shins just got tipped over. And you swing the knees up, both feet on the floor, tip to the outer left foot. You got to reach that top leg knee, that's the right knee, opposite the right elbow. Deepen that low belly. Try to wrap the outer right hip around. So as we turn the pelvis in this way, notice how what's on the floor, the outer left hip, is offset. It's like not right in line with the heart and spine, and there's a little twist and diagonal. I want to contrast this with something else coming up. Each side again. So to the soles of the feet and then over to the outer right foot. And you got to really reach that outer left. Drop the left shoulder back. Reach through the elbow. As if the left pelvic half is wrapping around towards the navel. Left chest receives the breath. Exhale, feet flat, sacrum to the floor. One more time to the left. And then the outer right leg, reachy, reachy, reachy. Outer right hip, wrapping, wrapping, wrapping. Right shoulder diving back. Right lung and chest, the most buoyant, the most floofy. And then Soles of feet, sacrum on the floor. Back to neutral. Keep hands where they are if you can. Straighten your two legs. Now let's reach the arms long. So full body stretch here. Maybe point flex the feet. You can make little feet fists, hand fists, spread fingers and toes. And let the next exhale or two dive that navel back and down, deepening that low pelvic belly. And then replace the hands behind the head. And bend just the right knee, right foot on the floor. Now here's where I want to turn the pelvis, but not offset the hips. So if you push the right foot into the floor and you float your hips up, can you swing the outer left hip under you? And you land that outer left hip. So it's another supine twist, but your spine is in line with itself. Straight down the mat. And as that right knee reaches across, exhale and swing the left elbow towards the ceiling. So for me, it feels like the front of the torso, or the torso itself, is a really wide ribbon wrapping around a maypole. That's coming, May Day, eventually, or whatever it's called. Not May Day, but is it May Day? And then to come out of this, you have to undo all the steps. So you can release the elbow. When you bring the right knee up, use the right foot on the floor to replace the back of the pelvis on the floor in line with your spine. Switch legs, right leg long, left leg bent, left foot on the floor, and float the pelvis up. Swing the pelvis like a swing, and the outer hip lands in line with the heart. Wrap that left knee across, and then it's the right elbow that goes to the ceiling. So we could say upper right torso towards ceiling via the elbow, and lower left torso towards the ceiling via the knee and hip. It's a pretty deep twist, but it's ideally neutral, so no back bend, no forward bend. So looking for that perfect spiralic balance, each vertebra doing a little bit of rotation. Let's do each side again. And so one could, in theory, switch on the inhale and go into the twist on the exhale. Left elbow goes to ceiling. 3 breaths. Keep reaching the elbow forever, left elbow. Keep reaching the right knee forever. And deepen that low belly hollow. Second side, one more time. In theory, you can switch on the inhale. And twist on the exhale. So if in your mind you're like, I thought this was going to be a strong practice, just wait. I'm a slow starter. Back to neutral. I vote knees bent, feet on floor. Use your hands behind your head still. Wrap the elbows against the side of your head. And as if you're trying to sort of pull a cap off your head or slide a hoodie up over your head, picking your head up, sliding your hands along the back of your head as an invitation to curl up, flex your spine, and the hands are going to slide right off your head and reach towards your feet. In theory, lumbar spine is pretty compressed back. You could swallow your nose here. So you're very integrated. It's not like ideally, it's not a strain in the neck, but you're very integrated, curled in. Extend the two legs. And then either use the reach of the hands or a little bounce of the legs, or catch the backs of your legs to come onto your sacrum. So now it's half boat, half boat. And then with an exhale, knees to armpits. And then another half boat. You can inhale there, exhale there, I don't care. I care about you. I don't care how you get in and out so much. Knees to armpits. You could flirt with the idea of straightening your legs. Depends on the quality of your hamstrings. Not everyone can straighten legs right out of the gate in a boat pose at 9:15 or whatever time it is. Half boat. Hoo-wee. And then one more, knees to armpits. And then feet on the floor. Go ahead and flip over. Hands and knees. Let's fold our blanket in half. And put it on the floor in front of your mat. Couple of cat-cows here. And maybe the cow is going to be more fun after that. Next, cow. Touch right elbow and left knee together under you. I meant to say cat. Next, cat. Right elbow, left knee under you. And then instead of a cow, neutral spine and stretch arm and leg long. And then the cat, they touch. And then neutral, reach long. Maybe a cow, right? You can extend, hip, spine, exhale, touch, and then one more long. Right hand, left knee, land, cat. Inhale, cow. Next, cat, left elbow, right knee. Neutral spine, go long. Left arm, right leg. Cat, touch, elbow and knee. Neutral spine, inhale long. Exhale, touch, elbow and knee. Maybe this one, add extension on the inhale. And one more. All four limbs on the floor, cat. Tuck your 10 toes under. Have a seat on your heels. Interlace your hands behind you. Give the shoulder blades a squeeze. So retract your shoulder blades. Soft elbows, so not super hyper straight arms. Soft elbows, and if you let the wrists bend, so I'm holding on really tight at the finger webbing where my fingers meet each other, holding on tight there, then trying to like pull them apart a little bit. Magnetizing elbows towards each other and trying to pull the wrists apart and letting all that feed into widening across the chest. And you could check yourself. I'm going to check myself. I tend to be a hyper backbender. So I'm going to soften my front ribs, soften my kidneys backwards, let my head bow a little bit here. And if your feet are screaming at you, you just have to decide if it's safe or not. Could be a helpful intensity. As long as you can manage it, as long as you can digest it, if it's causing you stress and strain or resistance, come out. And then from here, fold your mat. I hope you're on a slidey surface. If you're not on a slidey surface, then this next move, you just maybe find some other ab work to do. So let's fold our mat out of the way a little bit and come to lay on the partially folded mat, so like ribs are free. You got your blanket in front of you. Arms extended long on the blanket. I don't know if y'all can see me. I think you can. Yeah. So I'm going to scooch back a little bit. Karate chop hands, elbows on blanket. Palms face each other. Tops of feet long. Reach those toes back. Make your shins heavy. I call these cobra sliders. So you're going to karate chop into the blanket and slide the blanket towards you. So shoulder blades will retract, right? Chest comes up as high as you want here. See if you can resist squeezing your butt. Right? You slide long again. And then you draw the cobra karate chop hands back. So one way to not simply grossly squeeze your ass is to keep your feet heavy. Keep the tops of the feet heavy. Like when you come up, legs don't get lighter, but rather shins get heavier. And so in this way, we're trying to come up from a deeper muscular structure, not just surface back, surface buns. And then what if we swept this little movement towards one side? It's going to be a little bit harder now. You have to navigate that lateral flexion in the spine. So we're going to work one QL. Right side here for me. I'm going to make it a little smaller because it's a little more sophisticated. Working that right side and reach more left toes. Right, and you can modulate this, right? So if you're over the right side already, or if you want to do less, start to slide, slip and slide your way back to center. And I vote that you make this more about the arms, as much about the arms as you can, right? Let the arms, under armpits, backside arms, backs of shoulders really get lit up with this. Sweeping over to the left. Cobra sliders to the left. It's not very big. And my left QL muscle is not as strong as my right. So I'm going to spend a little more time over here. And then with repetition, you want to have a slightly different experience each time. There's a little different each time. Don't just dig or deepen the same old groove. And that has many applications. I'm making my way back to center. Making my way back to center. And last one, sliding blanket long. Sending the blanket a little further away, palms down now, forehead down, like Superman pose. Wrap your outer armpits towards the floor. So now protract the shoulder blades, send them wide. And try to send the blanket away from you. Breathe into your kidneys, breathe into the lumbar, breathe into the bottom of the rib cage and the back, side, front. Little bend in the elbows. Start to slide the hands towards you. But can you pause in like field goal position? And in theory, the arms are hovering. Like my arms are field goal post,
3, 4, 5, 6 inches off the floor. And like you got a lat pull down bar, pull the elbows, bottom tips of shoulder blades down and towards each other behind you now. Forehead still down in theory. And then you can reach towards the blanket. You could do a V shape if your shoulders get crabby, or arms straight overhead, still hovering in theory. This is intense for the shoulders. You might have to slide your hands along the floor. Lat pull down bar. Give those shoulder blades and elbows a squeeze behind. Exhale. Soften the front ribs towards your spine. A few more. And check, like one elbow, one shoulder is going to be a little lazier. You might have to call that one out, call that one up a little more. And then with the elbows and shoulder blades down and squeezed together, go ahead and plant your hands. Plant them like right next to your ribs. Pause here. Tuck your 10 toes under. Walk your feet towards your hips. They won't get very far. So you got chaturanga feet, you got chaturanga hands. Guess what's next? Pause here. Heavy your pubic bone and deepen that pelvic belly back. From that deepening pelvic belly back, can you reach your face, the bridge of your nose, your front teeth forward? And then from here, I invite you to go to chaturanga. Just a little hover, right? If you can sustain it, stand it. Maybe come down. We're going to do it again, and you can certainly go right up to plank. I'm going to go chaturanga to plank. Hiya! And then step your feet wide off your mat. Unfold your mat and stay in your wide-legged forward bend for a moment here. I'm going to make mine pretty casual, softening the knees. My hands are under my shoulders, not super folded in yet. But getting a little bit off the midline here, and that was a long floor sequence. Sliding right to left, bending one knee at a time. Side bending the spine. I'm going to slowly pour my spine down. Slowly pour it down into a more casual wide-legged forward bend. Still bending knees. Still sliding hips. So just registering this right to left movement with your legs. And what would it be like if we actually kept the two legs now straight as you can, and slide the hips right and left. So it's a very different action. And technically speaking, what's happening here is we're ab and adducting the legs, AD deducting and AB deducting, by way of moving the pelvis. So it's a proximal joint movement. We're using the pelvis right and left to take the legs closer and further from the midline, which has a whole host of therapeutic applications. Then slowly start to heel toe your feet right together. Not right together, hip width. Heel toe your feet hip width. Somebody needs something here. Can you lay down, Ozzy? Down dog. Down dog is next. I have an up dog in my presence. He's about to be a down dog too. Everybody down dog. Good boy. That's a good boy, Brownie. You're a good boy. From here, left leg sweeps up, but bend the knee, bend the left knee, bend the right knee, and come onto the ball mound of the right foot. So like a little spring-loaded spring. That's a loaded spring. Exhale, both knees bent. And then inhale like you're gonna push the ceiling up with your left heel, straightening your right leg. And then inhale, coil. I'm gonna bend my elbows a little bit too. And exhale, spring. And however straight your legs can get, inhale, coil. Exhale, spring. It's however straight your legs can get. No big deal. One more coil. Spring, stay long, stay both legs long. Lower the right heel and try to take the left leg higher. Wrap right sit bone towards inner left thigh. Lengthen right side waist. And then left foot down. Both knees down. Toe post. Pause. Other side. Down dog. Broaden that upper back. Get that outer armpit wrapping. Shoulder blade protraction. Right leg up but knee bend. So like you're kicking your own butt with your right heel. Bend left knee a lot. Ball mound of left foot. Inhale in the coiled up. And exhale, spring long. Left foot tiptoe. Right foot kicking the ceiling out of the way. Inhale, load the spring. Exhale, reach. Inhale, load. Exhale, spring. One more. Slowly lower, left heel. The two legs stay straight and long. Swing left sit bone under. Left sit bone like towards the inner right thigh. Right hamstring doing the mother load here. One or two more breaths. I'm taking this right to chaturanga. Inhale, right foot down. Swing forward, look forward, chaturanga. You can do cobra or locust or up dog. Reach through your big toes. Stay in the belly down back bend. A few breaths here. I like to bend my elbows and gather the upper back flesh. And from that deep low belly, slide the heart up. Reach through the space in the throat and front teeth to ceiling. Back to down dog. And then take your time to walk your feet super slow, baby steps, swishy booty, roll through the ankles, roll through the knees, soft, juicy feet to hands. And if you look forward, oh, there's our handy blanket. Catch it, roll it nice and tight, like a giant spliff. Yep. And then bring it onto your mat. Super tight blanket roll. And maybe catch your two blocks. Some of you might want your blocks here. You can have your blocks on their tall side. And if you put the ball mounds of the feet on the very top of that blanket roll, and the heel is on the floor. So if you're like, my ankles do not bend that much, then make your blanket roll smaller. But both feet on the top of both ball mounds of the feet, both sets of ball mounds of the feet on the top of the blanket roll, both heels on the floor. I don't need the blocks, so I'm gonna ditch them. Keep them if you need them. You got a really good visual of your feet, so this is a lot. This is a lot for the back body. Lift those inner ankles so you're not collapsing the inner line of the leg. And if you can, have the toes not little wilted, dying petals there, but long. They don't have to lift, but reach through the toes. Use exhales to deepen that low belly gathering. And we're going to take this to standing. So take your time. It's a tricky balance. And it's pretty easy to get almost all the way up to vertical, relatively speaking. But this last like 10 degrees of straightening takes some time. So if you can put your brain in your sit bones, which are sort of between your thigh bones, right? Thigh bones are wider, sit bones than tail. And if you can feel, find, invite, imagine your sit bones are trying to go forward in between your two thigh bones. A few things are likely to happen. Your thigh muscles get really turned on. Yay. And your deep gluteal muscles get really turned on. Yay. Those deep gluteal muscles are known affectionately as the deep six. Six muscles that live between pelvis and thigh bone. And specifically to swing the sit bones forward without having to clench your ass, right? So I'm not saying don't use your butt muscles for anything. Plenty of moves we do, use your surface glutes. Surface glutes get their due, but they're not, in my opinion, a skillful first choice for extending your hips. So here I'm about vertical. Little extra length for the front of the pelvis. Little extra length for the back of the calves. Yum. If you got it in you, reach up. And if you can keep taking those sit bones forward, lift your heart up, reach your front teeth up, touch your fingertips to the ceiling and maybe the tip of your nose and maybe the top of your heart. Swan dive down. Yum. Swan dive down. Step off the blanket, set it aside. We'll meet in standing again. So you can enjoy the forward bend, or you can simply come up to stand, or you could do your both dogs or cat-cow. And then back. Meeting and standing. And then with your blanket on the floor, again, sliding moves. If you're not on a slidey surface, you can simply step in and out of lunge. But if you take your blanket from the shape that it's in and fold it in half again, so it's like a square, and put your left foot on it, so you're standing mountain pose, and the left leg's a little shorter because the blanket's under it. Do whatever you need to do with your hands here. I usually do hands on hips or Hakini Mudra with the 10 fingertips together, or sometimes I interlace behind, hands behind head. Whatever the case, slide your left leg back towards a lunge. No fishtailing the back leg. And then you got to stand on that right foot and pull the left leg under you again. Lunge sliders. This is 3. Oh, hello, right thigh. Good morning. 4, 5. So I'm just noticing when I wobble. Clearly some imbalance in the musculature right to left. So one of my beloveds would say, Amy Matthews would say, see if you can, this is 6, see what happens just before the wobble. If you can hone in that clearly just before the wobble, what happens, and if you get a sense of that, let's do one more, lucky number 7. Maybe you can prevent the wobble. Let's stay in the lunge, hands down. Look back at your left foot. Can you roll over those toes, point the toes? I've fallen right off the blanket. Blanket's behind, left knee down. You could pause here, cat pose. In fact, keep reaching through the left toes. Navel deepens back and down. I like to take my navel down to my tail rather than up. I have a lot of up. So I take navel down. Spinal flexion with thigh extension. Spinal flexion with hip extension. Oh boy. You're welcome to bring the torso up and go up and reach up. I'm going to stay here. Eventually we'll meet with hands down, look forward, leave the blanket back there. You step your left foot forward, soften your knees, come rolling on up. So do a 180 if you're sliding with me and walk to the blanket. If you don't have a sliding surface, so you're stepping in and out of lunge, right? Just like we are, but we're sliding. So now the blanket's under your right foot. Hands however you need them. Slide right foot back. We're gonna do 7. Oh, left leg. 1. 2. Keep an eye on your left sit bone. Left sit bone really ideally is swinging at this point under towards your left big toe. And it really hooks under as you stomp on that foot and stand up. Is this 3? So left pelvic half does what's called abduction. 4. Left sit bone clearly scooping under. So now the glutes working, right? 5. 6, left glutes working a lot. Bring it on. Last one. 7, stay. Hands down. I'm going to send the blanket back with the toe point. Bring the knees down. Losing the blanket. I'm going to stay in spinal flexion with hip extension because it does me a world of good. I don't have a problem with spinal extension. This up and back business, that's easy for me. Hip extension is harder for me. So I'm going to stay cat spine, lunge legs. 3, 4, 5 breaths here. And can you use your breaths as just a presencing, connecting to present moment rather than some countdown to when you can get out? All right, then we're back in that trap of the 2s, the dandavas, want, don't want. How about just this? Bringing back foot, the right leg towards the left. Soften your knees. Come rolling on up. Pause. Yes, please. And step to the front of your mat if you're not there. And here you decide if you want to rock and roll your two dogs or just stand at the mountaintop. So we have movement to cleanse the palate. It could be both dogs, it could be cat-cows. Or we have stillness, whether it's soft stillness like an easy mountain, or I'm going to choose chair pose, Utkatasana. So strong stillness. I'm actually going to choose both. I'm going to pause here, chair pose, tiptoe chair pose, into my vinyasa cycle. I'm going to try to stay on tiptoe, straighten legs as I fold forward. Super edgy, sort of wiped out, and then through my both dogs. We'll meet in down dog. I'm going to turn around so the visual is better for this next thing. We're going to come off the midline for a little bit. So please step your right foot forward, but can you walk the right foot over to the left side of your mat? We're going to be diagonal on our mats. Some of you who practice with me regularly know what this is about. And if you look back at your left foot, scooch it over to the right side of your mat. So now your legs are sort of crisscrossed. Bend the right knee. A block might come in handy here. I'm just going to catch my right ankle with my right hand, arm on the inside of the knee, left hand to the hip. Those left toes are still turning to the right like a regular side angle stance. We just have the front leg, right foot, more forward. So more length in the front of your back hip. More length for the front of your left thigh. Especially if you really scoop your right sit bone towards your right toe. And that left hip point is trying to turn towards the floor in front of you. Reach left arm long, back behind you. Let the thumb be the longest finger here. Left thumb and right knee get a lot of distance. And then as you sweep your left arm forward in front of your face, in front of you, high. Let the pinky now, pinky tip, pinky finger be the longest as you reach that arm along the side of your face and watch it go. Now a lot of distance between left pinky and left heel. One more, two more breaths. Your choice. Left hand down, step back, do your thing, or come up. Turn your 10 toes and come to stand. You decide what you want to do in the middle, how you want to cleanse your palate. I knew this would happen. I had my morning tea too close to class. I'll see if I can hang in there. We'll meet in down dog, however you want to get there. You guys can get up and go pee whenever you want. I suppose I could too. Okay, left foot steps forward and over to the right. So left foot like goes where your right hand is or was, or just behind it. And then the right foot, scooch it over to the left. But keep those right toes turned to the left. So right leg has a little hint of internal rotation. Use your block or left hand to ankle, right hand to hip. And then clearly invite left sit bone towards left heel. Clearly, clearly Scoop that left sit bone under. And the right hip point, the as is in front, sort of wrapping down, wrapping down. Thumb tip leads the way for your right arm to slice back behind you. It's called shoulder extension, this move. Thumb reaching more helps. A lot of distance between right thumb tip and left knee. And a lot of distance between right heel and left knee. And then as you slice the right arm forward in front of you, like you're sliding your arm across a tabletop, now let the pinky grow the longest as you reach the arm overhead. And maybe watch it go. You reach with your front teeth, you reach with your upper palate, face toward hand. And now huge distance between right pinky and right heel. As you're ready, either come up or go down. Find your work in the middle, whether it's strong or soft, moving or static. We'll meet in the mountain. From the mountaintop, Hakini Mudra, all 10 fingertips together or whatever you need to do with your hands. Soften your knees and point your left toes back. You can have them touching the floor to start or hovering. So Warrior 3 flirt. So let's keep the right knee bent. You might need to reach your arms forward to counterbalance. And simply using the reach of the left leg to land you in a lunge. So left foot's on the ground, big old lunge here. Bend your left knee a lot and flirt with the idea of touching that left knee to the floor. Land if you must, but if you can, hover. And then as you straighten it, tip the torso forward. Lift the belly up. Slide that left arm across the right knee. And as you slide further, I'm going to use my right hand to help me get a little bit more outer left shoulder to outer right knee. So it's a lunge twist. I got Hakini Mudra again. Scoop right sit bone under, right sit bone under, 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 under. And then maybe spread your arms, maybe left fingertips go to floor or block. Couple 3, 4 breaths. Super gather deep low belly. And the right arm, swing it back towards your left foot, under, catching left hand, both arms up. Party here, right thigh on fire, and if you can, step forward to stand or go down and do your dogs, whatever you choose. I'm choosing to stand. Mountaintop view, big picture perspective. And that big picture perspective is everything's gonna be okay. Top of the mat. I like to start with Hakini Mudra, both knees soft. Reach right toe tips back like an antenna or a feeler, a probe. Bend left knee more, right leg more and more reach until it's like the inevitable, you gotta land in your lunge.
call this the knee drop lunge, where you bend that back leg a lot, flirt with touching the floor with that knee. It's all about thigh strength for me here. And then as you straighten the leg, tip the torso forward, and then slicing that right arm across into a twist. And as the right arm elbow goes over to the left, can you bring that left sit bone under to the right? And eventually, open the arms, right arm down, left arm maybe to sky. It depends on what you can do with that left shoulder. You might do better with the left hand on the hip and simply squeeze the shoulder back, right, to open the chest. And if the chest is easily openable, then the arm going up makes sense. Sweep the left hand back and then under, and it catches the right hand, and then up you come. Party, party, party. Woo! And I'm going down this time. You can come to stand, or you can go down through your dogs. We'll meet in standing eventually. Okay. It's getting hot in here. I don't really want to take off all my clothes. So, from standing, left palm, left forearm out to the side, palm facing up. Setting up standing bow, like Bikram style. If you straighten that left arm, I know, he whose name that should not be said, I just said it. It's a reference. If you put the inner ankle, inner left foot into the palm of the hand, so the chest is turned open, the left arm is turned open. It's our starting point. And you take your right arm up, and let that left knee first just drop. So like knee drop, left knee near, maybe touching or side by side with the right knee. Doesn't have to touch. And I'm a fan of bending the standing leg, right, a little or a lot. I feel a lot more integration from foot to hip if I have a knee bend at first, especially. And then kick the left foot into your left hand. Let that be the main motor of the pose. And in fact, let it pull the left chest open. But can you keep the left hip turned down? So it's a little bit of a twist in the upper. And the right arm is straight out on your bullseye focal point. And you're kicking and reaching. Left hip turning down and forward as left chest goes back and up. So hard to do and talk at the same time. So you guys stay with it. Couple, 3 more breaths. Casual dismount. You can turn it into a little backstroke where now the left arm is up and the right arm comes down and you scoop up. That right foot, so chest is open, palm of hand to inner ankle. Arm is not twisted, it's purely turned open. Maybe soften left knee. I prefer that. Push the right foot back into the hand. Let that pull the chest open. Turn the chest, but then the hip, you gotta wrap that right hip forward. So you have that deep gathered low belly. Couple, 3, 4, 5 breaths, kicking like mad into stillness in motion. And find your dismount. Checking the time. Cleanse your palate in whatever way feels most helpful, whether you stand in stillness or you move. Eventually we're going to meet in kneeling. So however you want to get to kneeling. And by kneeling, what I really meant was knees and elbows, hands, palms together like prayer, elbows under shoulders, and specifically inner elbow at the joint where your collarbone meets your shoulder, if you can sense where that is in your body. And if you peek at your hands, and you actually tip the fingers up towards the ceiling, making the outer wrist heavier. So this is that pinky finger being the longest again. Tuck your toes under. And as if you could shove the mat forward with those outer wrists and use that to float the knees, but they're still bent. And it's like tail and pinky fingers furthest apart. And you eventually land in your elbow dog. Now, depending on your shoulders, you might need to err on the side of more integrity and less length. So you might bring your shoulders over your elbows, work there, and then the deepening of the low belly takes you up and back, and your ears might land between your two arms, right? And then how much you shove the mat forward with your forearms and how much the tail goes back and head comes back, that's up to your shoulders. There should not be any pinching or vulnerability or weakness in the under armpit. Should feel very strong and integrated. Navel away from the fingers, tail away from the fingers. Let's take one or two more breaths. And then come on down. Have a seat on your heels. So if you have sensitive knees and full knee flexion with hip extension is no good for you, you could lay on your belly and do the Mandukasana, the frog pose, this one. So you have a lot more control over what the knees have to endure. But if your knees are happy, I got no knee drama. Let's free the right foot, put it next to the left knee here, hip width distance. And then as you bring your bum to the ground, there's a little internal rotation left leg, and my hips are right up against the left foot, no gaps. But certainly put your blanket under your bum, right? To make life a little easier for the knee. It won't make it any easier for the thigh stretch that's coming. And so from here, it's like the hands are behind you, and this might be plenty for you. And to borrow Eric Schiffman's words, it's like hips up, belly down. So little low belly deepening and cat pose low belly. So here I am again, spinal flexion, hip extension. I love it. And if there's room, elbows down. Basically, we're going to Ardha Supta Virasana, or half supine hero's pose. Hips up, belly down, hips up, belly down. Diving the knee, left knee, forward, forward. Trying to come onto the back of the pelvis, backs of shoulders. And because it's asymmetrical, I feel the listing, the tipping of the pelvis, like to the right. So I like to tuck my right forearm, right wrist, just under the outer edge of my pelvis. So now I've got like a little brace there. which for me makes catching my right knee with left hand available. Upping the ante for that left thigh. You may not be anywhere near this place, or you may be well past it. You might be able to shoot that right leg straight and hold the foot. Part of this practice and part of our self-study, our svadhyaya, and our life's work, the Dharma, is to inquire as to whether or not the juice is worth the squeeze. So there's plenty of places in my physical practice that I can go, I have gone, and I don't because it doesn't serve me. And including that capacity to lay the ego down, to lay down the, oh, I can do this and this and this, for, oh, I might be better served. More beings might be better served if I make another choice. Oh goodness. Oh goodness. Can you lay down, Brown? Still with first side. Down dog. In display here. You don't do down dog. He did a good one. And then when you're ready, we'll switch sides. I'm pretty much ready for switching sides. So basically, you just undo the steps. If you cannot undo the steps, then just roll to the right, climb on out. I go to down dog or a plank pose in between. A down dog or plank pose in between. Just to straighten that knee out, gather the belly. And then side number 2. So some of you are probably still on your bellies. When you slide the hip, the pelvis rather, to the inside of the right foot, there's a little bit of internal rotation of that right leg. Let that happen. That's helpful. Hands behind you to support, hips up, belly down. Hips up, belly down. And then if the hips can stay up and the belly can stay down, that's the pattern, that's the blueprint to sustain as you lay your spine back any amount, and it may not be very much. If you can get all the way to your shoulder blades, at least every once in a while, micro hover the hips and deepen that low belly area, pelvic belly. One of my mantras is wide back, deep front. Wide back, deep front. I'm going to use my left wrist as a little brace under the outer left hip. And for me, I'm going to catch that left knee with my right hand. And I have this handy dog prop here that's keeping my right knee from splaying. Ideally, we do that ourselves. Keep the right knee from splaying out to the right. 5, 6, 7, 10 breaths here. No pain, of course, no pain. So if you can't get anywhere near this without pain, then stay far away from it. You can come back to lunges, knee down lunges, any other way to find length in the front of the hip without having to compromise your spinal integrity, without having to compromise hip socket integrity. So the front of the hip ideally has some degree of softness. Like you can't feel or sense that the head of the femur is bulging forward. If that's the case, I would come out, or with your right leg, the back of the leg muscles, hamstring and calf, Try to fold that knee more. Try to gather the back of that right knee more, and that'll pull the right thigh bone back towards the floor, towards its own hamstring, softening the inguinal groove, that diagonal groove where your leg meets your pelvis. That should be deep and not pressed forward. That will be deleterious for the hip socket. When you feel ready, you climb on out, either a down dog or a plank pose. I'm going to simply step my left foot onto the floor and pull my right foot out. So I'm on my back, ready for bridge. Have your 2 blocks nearby. And we're going to meet on our backs, ready for bridge. So for me, I like to start with the knees and feet right together. I can feel my inner ankle bones touching. Can feel the inner edge of my big toe mounds touching. And keeping my toes together, just kick your heels apart. And then align the toes with the heels. So probably a good chance your feet are hip width and they're even. I find that a more reliable measure than touching your heels, because we all have a curvature in our spine, and simply touching your heels with your fingers might set you up crooked, which isn't wrong. It's not ideal probably. So from this hook line position, they call it, exhale, reach your 2 knees forward over your toes, and notice how that pulls the hips up. Notice how that turns on your hamstrings. Release that down and then do it again. Just send the knees forward like there's 2 buttons on the opposite wall you want to push with your knees, and then bring it down. So hamstrings, hamstrings. Next time you're up, stay up. Hamstrings, huge part of back bends, huge part of back bends. Then from here, as if you're going to push the mat forward with your feet, that turns on your thighs. And then reach the knees forward, turn on your hamstrings. I'm actually creeping my shoulders closer to my feet. And then push the mat away, it turns on your thighs. And then pull yourself towards your feet, reach your knees forward, hamstrings, and then thighs. And so this toggling, hamstrings, thighs, sending the hips higher and higher and higher. You could interlace hands behind here and simply drive the outer feet down, inner edge of the big toe ball mound, so the 3 corners of the foot clearly stated. Knees not splaying, buns not clenching, but turned on. Couple breaths here. So the next place I'd like to go is Urdhva Dhanurasana. So many of you can simply plant your hands next to your head and go, right? Elbows stay in. I'm going to put blocks under my feet. I'm going to put 1 block under each foot on the flat side. I'll spin around so you can see. I've always wanted longer legs. Here's my chance. Plus, my main obstacle in asana in general, and in back bending specifically, is the tightness in the front of my hips from too many years on a bike. So this gives me longer legs. So I'm starting the same way. Knees reach forward, turning on hamstrings. Trying to shove the blocks forward, turning on thighs. Placing hands next to head. I like to turn my fingers out a little. Elbows hug in. And you can certainly come to the top of your head, and when you're ready, you push up. You may not get all the way up. It's totally legit to push halfway up, pause, breathe, and then come down. Some of you might like blocks under hands better.
I prefer blocks under feet. I'm going to do a few here. You decide. You could stay in bridge. You could turn me off and go away. Namaste. Or just rest. And we'll join you in rest in a minute. You say we do one more? Yes, no, maybe so. Uno más for me. Para mí, uno más. Knock the blocks out of the way, kick them out to the side, feet wide, knees together, hands on belly, sort of like how we started. And just feel that rush of intensity. And endure, right? What a good practice for life. Feel the adrenaline, feel the activation of the kidneys, digest it. In these moments, I think of the tales of Shiva, the blue-throated one, Campanila, how he drinks the poison and saves the day. So in this way, practicing enduring intensity, enduring difficulty, enduring challenge, so that we may be of more help to others in times of intensity and challenge. Now, if you need to unwind your back, I do not need to unwind my back. It feels great. You could hug a knee in, one knee at a time. Probably keep the other leg bent, right? You could do a happy baby, or flip over and do down dog. Maybe child's pose. I'm just going to hang out here and eventually take this into Shavasana. Listen to your own spine, listen to your own body, and if you feel the call, if the consequence of the back bend is to do a forward bend, is to unwind the back, then deal with that consequence. The consequences of my back bending are pure bliss and delight. And so here's a deep teaching, like, how do you know what you need? How do you know what you need? And here's where teachers can fail all the time and unknowingly deceive us. Well, I think you need X, Y, Z. I don't know, especially in this context. If I'm with you in person, I might have a good guess. But be leery of those teachers who tell you what you need. Ideally, they're well-intentioned, but still, they're not on the plane with you. And so if you did some lumbar releasing after that, find your way to Shavasana. You have the blanket. You could put a blanket roll behind your knees or a blanket roll behind your neck. You could also do a prone Shavasana on your belly or a side-lying Shavasana. Again, what do you need? And it's usually pretty different from what we want. Not always, especially if we're aligned. If our outer phenomena, wants and tugs and pulls of life is really aligned with our inner scaffolding of stability and care and compassion. If the outer and inner are aligned, more often what we want and what we need are also aligned. And may that be so. So please rest. Feeling where gravity has you, feeling where you meet the floor with weight, and let the weight drop. Just lay it down. May we all lay down our heaviest burdens. And in that laying down of our heaviest burdens, even if it's just for this 5 minutes, may love and light bubble up and infuse us and inspire us to do the loving thing. What's the most loving thing in this moment? And right now it's to rest. And may confusion and ignorance only decrease, and may the roots of confusion and ignorance wither. And may love and compassion and skillful means only increase, and may the roots of love and compassion and skillful means only deepen and strengthen. And with that, I leave you. May it be so. I think I'm going to take tomorrow off, but you can check my page. If you feel inspired to donate, it helps me a lot. Being self-employed and without work. Thank you. I love you. And let there be peace on earth. Bye-bye.